Welcome back to our ResiArt YouTube channel, guys. My name's Angie. Today I plan on going through with you what we can use our lace resin for. Usually you'll find that you'll see it used for your ocean scenes. Today I want to show you that you can actually use it for other stuff. So I've got a little Lazy Susan here, and I'm going to fill that and make a bit of an artistic pattern with the resin and with the lace and colours, and we'll create a one-of-a-kind piece so you don't just have a plain Lazy Susan for your home. Okay, before we start, I'll just go through a list of what we need today. So obviously we're going to start off with our resin, which is our Resi Lace. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, and we'll be mixing that up in our ratio cups. I have stirrers, I have paddle pop sticks, so that way it'll help me disperse my colours, and of course a wide range of colours. I have my piece that I'm going to work on, which is my Lazy Susan, and I have some spare little mixing cups as well, but most importantly, we have our gloves for our PPE. So I'll pop these on now. These are just our nitrile gloves. This piece that I've chosen, which is a Lazy Susan that I've purchased, it actually has a little bit of a matte texture running through in the detail, if you can catch it there. So I actually haven't prepped the surface of this. If you are planning on using different pieces for your artworks, I do suggest that you make sure that the surface is prepped and that you're aware that the resin can bond to certain surfaces and release from others. Okay, let's get mixing. So today I'm using my ratio cup, and I'm using the 2-to-1 ratio on the side here, and I'm going to pour up to our 5 marker. And our Resi Lace is a thicker product, so it does take a little bit more to come out of the bottle, just giving it a little bit of a squeeze. And the reason that it's formulated a little bit thicker is because, as the word lace means, it helps give us that cellular look with our resin when we've pushed it around with a heat gun or a blow dryer. And it helps capture the bubbles and retain those bubbles, which allows us to create that lace effect, because those bubbles will pop and it'll give you that cellular look. And I'm now going to pop in our hardener. Again, pouring from the side of the bottle so I have some control, up to the number 5 on the second column. And now we have our 2-to-1 Resi Lace mixture. So I'm just going to get straight in there and mix it up. We do want to make sure we thoroughly mix this product through and get that mixing happening between your part A and your part B. I'm scraping right from the bottom of the container. Once I get most of this mixture combined, I'm actually going to go around the side of the container and the base of the container again to make sure that I don't have any unmixed portions sticking there. Usually we'll spend about 4 to 5 minutes mixing a batch, but it's not just the time frame that's important, it is making sure that you get a thorough mixture and around the sides and the base of that container as well. Now, the pot life for working with Resi Lace is up to 45 minutes. That does depend on your ambient temperature though. If you're working and it's a really hot summer's day in Queensland, then your working time with that may be reduced because your resin will be warmer to start with and the ambient temperature is warmer. Versus if you're working down in inside a house in cold Victoria, then the pot life will be up to 45 minutes. So I'm just making sure I'm going right around that side of that container and the base, making sure I'm scraping at the bottom of the container. My mixture has a fair amount of bubbles in it. With the majority of ResiArt resins, the bubble release is excellent. But with this particular resin, it is formulated to hold those bubbles a little bit more. When you are pouring it out at the right level, it's a maximum 4 millimeters that we're pouring it out, but when you pour it out and you're using your heat gun on it or your blow dryer, those bubbles will pop, and what it'll create is your cellular effect when they pop. So to know when your resin's mixed through thoroughly, I like to pick it up and look at it against a light source to see if I can see any strands that look like an unmixed portion in my mixture. I can let it sit for a couple of minutes to help that chemical reaction happen of your part A and your part B going together. But ultimately, if I know that I've thoroughly scraped the sides of my container and the base of the container, and I'm mixing and I don't see any strands, like they look like translucent hairs, if I don't see any of those, I know that my mixture is 100% thoroughly mixed. I'm happy that I've thoroughly mixed my part A and my part B together now. So next step is we're going to divide up this resin and play with some colours. Okay, I've just got some painter's tape here and I'm just going to rip off a little bit and I'm going to create myself a spout. When pouring from our containers, with that little bit of a rolled lip, I find that the resin tends to want to drip out and make a bit more of a mess. So when I make my own little spout by popping the tape on the inside lip of your container and just giving it a nice little pinch, I'm actually creating a little spout for the resin to pour out of, but also it stops some of that dripping and stops making so much of a mess. So that's just one of my little hacks that I like to do. I've got 3 larger containers, including the ratio cup that I'm using. So I'll mix some of the my main focus colours into these cups. And then I also have a few of these little mixing cups, and I'm going to pour a little bit into each of these, so that way I can add a couple of little feature colours. There's no right or wrong, so you can add as many colours in as you like. You can use whatever colour combination you like. It comes down to the fact that if you like it, you can do it. The 2 of the opaque colours that I've chosen are our White Horizon and our Black Abyss. I do want a black and a white feature through this. Now, with the fact that they're an opaque tint, generally you'll find that if you haven't used these for a while, that you do need to thoroughly mix them. And I know we've recently used our black, so this one seems to be pretty well mixed. I'm making sure I'm getting right to the bottom of my tin here, around the sides, just giving it a good mix through. I'm happy with that. So we'll move over to our White Horizon and we'll open that tin and give that one a mix. As much as you can use any colour with your lace, it's a good idea when you want majority of your cell work to work, like especially when it's your ocean waves, to use an opaque tint. You do have to be mindful though to keep your tints to a minimum, just enough in there so that you can see that your resins change colour and it's nice and opaque. But I do always like to have a couple of opaque colours, flat colours, not my metallic powders all through it. That way I can get more of that effect of the lacing working across my colours. Okay, I'm happy that we've thoroughly mixed our white through as well. I'm just going to mix some of that into my little cup here. And like I said earlier, you don't need a lot. So I'm literally just going to use the stick that I've just mixed with. And just with what was remaining on my paddle pop stick, that's enough to give me a nice solid white to work with. And I don't need any more tint than that. Some of our Black Abyss into this next little cup. Again, what's remaining on my paddle pop stick here is enough to tint this small little bit of resin up. That you run a risk if you add too much tint into your mixture of it not curing correctly. Majority of the time your resin will remain a little bit spongy, so to speak. So if you put your fingernail in it, you'll notice an indentation on your resin, and it'll stay like that forever if you've mixed too much tint into it, because you're changing the consistency of the resin itself. Now that I've got my 2 opaque colours mixed, I'm going to mix up a few of my metallic colours. I've got blackish green, bright pearl, satin blue, olive green, and shimmer gold. I'm just going to break it apart a little bit to start with. That way I won't have too many chunks going under the surface of the resin. Sometimes the powder can be quite clumpy and it'll trap in a bubble underneath the surface. And I find later on that might come out and pop open and it'll create like a powder pocket on top of your work. So I do like to make sure that I can get the metallic mixed through thoroughly. Making sure I've mixed it right through around the sides and the base of the container again. Okay, who's ready to see me pour? So I'm not lifting or raising this tray today because I've actually got a side edge on it. But if you had a flat piece of artwork and you knew that the resin would run over the side, you would want to actually lift it up so that way your piece wouldn't get stuck to your table. So I know I don't have to prep that with this particular tray today, so just keep that in mind if you are creating an artwork or where it's running over the top of a chopping board or anything along those lines, that usually you would lift it up just using a recycled cup or something like that, just so it's separated from your table. So this is the fun part. I'm not going to pour traditionally like what your ocean waves are. I'm actually going to pour in pockets of colour, and then I'm going to actually move them around a fair bit with the heat gun today. I'll add some of our olive green in. And there's no real method to my madness here with creating. Like mentioned earlier, you can be as creative as you want, and there's no real right or wrong when it comes to, you know, artistic impressions. So I'm just popping it on in sort of random spots, and I will allow majority of the movement of the with the heat gun to actually move it around and create the patterns that I want. I do have a batch of clear, so I'm going to sort of pop that a little bit over some of the pockets of my colours here as well, to spread it out. A little bit more of my blue in. Pour a few small pockets of my pearl white. A couple of little pockets of my gold. And then I'm going to dribble some of my black and my white in pockets and in small lines over the top of the piece. And like I said earlier, there's no real method to my madness. I'm going to let the heat gun do its thing and spread some of these colours out and get some lacing patterns happening. Now I've got my pure white, so I'm going to do the same thing with that. I'm just going to pop in pockets of it and then just dribble some across as well. It's kind of handy having the Lazy Susan spin around for me. Saves me having to manually move around the job. Okay, I have a bit of resin on my gloves, so I'm just going to change my gloves, and then we're getting out the heat gun and doing the fun part. Okay, so I've got my heat gun. Now you can use a blow dryer for this stage as well, but I'm using a heat gun. I control my heat on this one. I can control my fan speed. So I'm going to pop the heat to close to high, not right on high, and I'm going to use the higher speed because I actually want to be able to push this Resi Lace around to create our lacing effects. So let's go. We've spread a fair bit of the black around, so we'll see how that one goes. I might attempt to put a little bit more white through a couple of little bits very shortly, but we've definitely got an interesting pattern happening here. All right, just break up some of that black a little bit. It's always good to save a tiny bit of your colour if you want to re-amend your work after you've used the heat gun or the dryer on it. And I also have a tiny bit of my blue and green left too, so I'm going to pop a little bit more of that back through. Then once I've finished popping the heat gun back on it, I'm actually going to give it a little mist with ISO. And when I use the ISO, I just make sure that it is 100% or very close to, because we don't want any additives like water or anything else that some of the companies put in, because that way it can affect the way the resin cures. A little bit of my green through too. I'll give it another go. So I've broken up a few of those pockets of the black. Now I'm not going to use my heat gun anymore, so I'm able to give it a little bit of a mist with ISO, and that way it'll form a little bit of a reaction and we'll get some more cellular work. You can definitely see it's more broken up there now. So look at those cells forming across the top of the colour. So it's a nice dark piece, but I like my art dark. But you can just see those popper colours coming through it. I've just had an idea to break this up a little bit more as well, putting a little bit of the gold foil through it. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of that now to a couple of little spots through the piece. It does want to stick to anything and everything, especially if there's a little bit of moisture in it. So what I like to do at this point is get a little skewer, and if the end of the skewer is a little bit damp, then I can actually pick up individual pieces and place them into the Resi Lace. And I'll start by picking up a couple of the pieces that are here. And I just want to lay it in. If you have trouble with removing it, you can always get a second skewer and and it works like chopsticks, so you can sort of push the bit of foil off of it. I think using these gold, the gold foil, it's a really nice contrast against the darker colours. I think we'll leave it at that. We've got a nice little bit of contrast there that's broken up the board with the gold foil. We've got a nice dark with the pops of green and blue and the white coming through, so I'm really happy with this. Now, finishing it off, if you were to use Resi Lace alone and you were to pour it over a board or inside this without putting the foil on it, you could most definitely leave it as it was. You wouldn't have to do a gloss coat or another finish on it. Being that I've now put some gold foil on the top, my finish won't be completely flat and smooth. So it comes down to your personal taste as to whether you put a nice gloss flood coat on this, and that can be achieved by using either our Resi Glaze or our Resi Clear. It does come down to your personal taste as to the finish you want. There's enough gloss in the Resi Lace itself, so you can actually finish off and not have to apply a top coat if you don't want to. I'm very happy with the way this has turned out, and it's not what I had in mind to start with, but that's part of art. You do need to be open-minded, and so I'm really glad that we've added some foil into it, and I like the darkness of this piece. That's it for today. So if you make sure you like and subscribe, keep following us for more tips and tricks on using all of our resin types here at ResiArt. But until next time, we'll see you later.